gentle on yourself, because I'm telling you, it's convoluted in the beginning. Anyway, he says, the divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul. All instinctively feel this. Thus, the inherent nature of man is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. We do well to listen to this inner voice, for it tells us of a life wonderful in its scope, of a life beyond our fondest dreams, of a freedom which the soul craves. Yes. Now, just a little caveat right there. Dr. Holmes wrote at a time when it was man, him, so just let that flow through your filter. You know that we can go in and change and rewrite this whole book. Yeah, there's no reason to. We're adults. We're all grown up. We know how to hear the word his or him or, the sonship. We can do that. I know even Casey can do that, and she does it so well. Because here it is. We know, and we just read it, and we interpret it. So the invitation is to dive into the study of science of mind, and to do that, to actually achieve the freedom that is being spoken about, we have to kind of understand what it is we're dealing with. What is the concept behind that science of mind was basically founded on? And so Dr. Holmes says, the study of science of mind is the study of first cause, spirit, mind, or that invisible essence, that ultimate stuff, the intelligence from which everything comes, the power back of creation. We call it the thing itself. Yes. Are you guys still all with me? So I've got a moment of humor here, because understanding that today is one of those days that can be a little, maybe considered a little heavy, a little dry. I'm going to do my best to lighten it so that you can see some of what he writes in my crazy colloquial text. So I start with a little joke. So after a very long and boring sermon, the parishioners filed out of the church, saying nothing to the preacher. Towards the end of the line was a kind woman who always commented on the sermons. Pastor, today, your sermon reminded me of the peace and love of God. The pastor was thrilled and asked the woman to say more. She goes, well, she explained, it reminded me of the peace of God because it passed all understanding, and the love of God because it endured forever. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that to you guys. So we begin with, what is it that we believe? In Science of Mind, the very first statement we say is, we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, self-existent cause. Any questions? No questions. Come to class for the questions. But this is a statement that we make. So in this very thing, we see that when we speak of God, we speak of the thing itself. So what do we start with here? We start with, how do we understand God? So what I'm going to invite every one of us to do today is because we understand that we grow up with God, the word God. We have our buttons, we have our history, we have so much baggage around the word God. So what we want to do is we want to try and release that word today, because it is just a word. So you can call it anything you want. It doesn't really matter. I used to call it ether. Somebody goes, oh, it's not the ether. I go, here's the thing. It's my word. I get to call it whatever I want. Yeah, I can call it it. It's my word. So don't let anybody tell you what you need to call it. But what the most important thing is to release this word, because you will hear it. We don't want it to spark you. We don't want you to go, oh, I can't hear that. It's about God. Well, okay. So first of all, what we do is we release this old idea of God being separate from us, this man in the sky, This whole idea that is anthropomorphic. I love that word, and it never rolls off my tongue. But this idea that if we remember that we were made in the image of God, but then we turned around and made God in the image of us. We gave it limitations. We gave it bias. We gave it judgment. We gave it all these things. The thing itself has no clue about that whatsoever. None. In fact, you've heard me say God doesn't care. Woo! Yes, we'll get back to that. You know I don't mean that God doesn't care, but God is unbiased completely. So let's take a moment here. Take a breath in and just go into your cave of your heart for 1 minute and feel the word God in you. Just feel that word God in you. Find the itch. Does it have an itch? Does it feel uncomfortable? Does it come up with all of this history and yuckiness from something and you never ever want to say this word again? Or is it just another word? So just take a moment and breathe in. You know, you can always turn it around, it's dog, right? So we can always just call it dog. This is another one. So just breathe in. Breathe in to this word God. Try and let whatever thoughts or ideas you have about it just sink away. And if the word itself still has a tone of a deep orange or a red, and you know that you are always going to still hold on to this feeling tone, take it and move it up and out and bring something else into its place. What is that word that you are going to use moving forward for God? What is that word that you are going to hear when somebody says God? What is that word? Now take that word, wrap your arms and hearts around that word, and know that every time moving forward, if you hear the word God, this is what you will hear, with no pause, no thought, no judgment. This is your word moving forward. So take that word and breathe it in. And breathe it out. And we know that this is the truth for you. And never again, moving forward, are you going to have to shy away from somebody saying the word God, for you hear immediately what is your word. All right, let's breathe it in and come back to me. Whew. Oh, I got a little bit of chicken there. That felt good. So here are some of the words that come from the New Thought Dictionary. The absolute, the God principle, the supreme, the unknowable, unthinkable, unmanifest, yet manifest in all. The unconditioned, yet every condition. That which is in back that of all that is manifested, known and unknown. That which is all life, all power. The formless, which is all form. The changeless, which includes all change. The infinite life, principle, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. The great self-existent cause back of all of this. So, we can use variety. This is not a problem, because at all of it, we're still speaking about the same thing, the thing itself. The one thing we do have to be careful of, though, that even when we get our new word and we have this whole new idea about what God is, the concept, there's still sometimes that creeps over the limitations that we have gotten from our past anthropomorphic God. What God wills. Oh, God's way. Well, we'll see what God wants. There are sometimes these ideas that are still limiting, even though we've shifted into knowing that God is not that person in the sky, and we have a much broader understanding of what it is, we still use some words that will limit this thing, or will limit our experience in it. So we tread carefully. We watch our words. We want to know that we are letting go of all of the bondage and all of the limitation, including our perception of this magnificent thing. And I know I can just feel this idea of calling it it. I know that we have one of our beloveds that's probably online with us going, it's not an it, please don't call it it, because it's God. It's fine, we can call it, it does not matter. It doesn't have any bias, it doesn't feel anything about what you call it. So we're going to start by calling it first cause. That from which everything comes, the cause that is made manifest on any plane, that which comes first, the first of any creative series, the life back of everything. Without first cause, nothing else can exist. So first cause must exist, and there can be no reality where it does not. First cause must also be changeless, since change is always triggered by some outside force or event. But since first cause is the first, no other causes can affect it. This means first cause must not only be changeless, but it must also be perfect. First cause must be creative, since there is a great deal of diversity in the natural world. It must be intelligence, since there is amazing structure and complexity in the universe. And first cause must also be powerful in order to create and sustain all of these things. So what is it? What is this thing itself? It is absolutely everything. 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 We start with the very breath itself. Our breath. This is part of the first cause. We look around us. There is no beginning. There is no end. It is the center. It is the circumference. It is energy. It is love. It is creation. It is absolutely everything. And it's so hard sometimes to stand here and want to describe it, because it's so hard to describe, because I look around and I go, just look. It is everything. Everything, even back and extended to every galaxy that has ever been. Back to maybe the Big Bang. Dr. Ernest Holmes was always said, you know, we don't know. He goes, I don't care where this was. It could have been, we see it as always been around. He goes, I don't actually care to delve into this idea to find out where it all started. That is probably something we can never know. He goes, what I want us to do is work in it, with it. Because to understand it means to change our lives. So let's understand it. Let's understand what we can tell it, what we can understand it to be. And let's understand how it works. This is way more productive than trying to just spend all of our time going, well, you know, what happened before? What happened before? What happened before? Well, we don't know. We just do not know. You know, our quantum physicists are looking at things, but even the Big Bang Theory goes back to this idea, well, there must have been somebody to see it. It must have been an observer. To bring that wave into a particle requires it to have been seen, or the idea to have happened. Well, what was that? Did it self-create? We have no idea. So these are questions that we can bring or we can discuss over a nice glass of whiskey and maybe a cigar. But is this of the greatest importance to us as we want to move forward with understanding how it works? How does this creative intelligence, this love that permeates everything, how does this work for us? And somebody goes to me, well, how do you know that it's loving? You know my answer, right? Moss grows on the north side of a tree. Okay, if it grew on the south side, it would burn up. That is loving. That is creation. Creation is love. Not this intimate love that we want to cuddle up with. No, the love of creation giving of itself over and over and over again without end, without limitations at all. Giving. And all we have to do is receive. But we can only receive to the extent of understanding it, understanding how it works, and then ultimately going on to next week, understanding how we get to use it. So now we can, if we've discussed this thing that has no name. Isn't that brilliant? It has no name other than what you give it. It has no understanding other than what you are willing to understand, because it is in and of and through you. I felt I just dropped right into this textbook. I started using lingo and language that you can only find in here. So as I'm moving forward, remember, for all of those that are coming to class to get the foundations, this is a required book. And we will read it. Or we try, at least. I'm not saying we'll understand it right away, but we will. And because it's so beautifully done, it gives us the texture of what Dr. Holmes wanted us to wrap ourselves around with this thing. So sometimes when we discuss the nature of this universal energy, or this mind with the big M, or intelligence or spirit, we find ourselves in it that we are actually broadcast stations of this thing. Yeah. I love that idea of having this kind of cloud right above our heads, and all of our heads are just sticking through this far, and we all have those little radio antennas, how we're all connected with each other, because we're all connected in this one mind. So we're little brass broadcast stations for this thing, you know, because at the end of the day, without us, it doesn't express. I love that. Oh, I had an aha moment, yes. So there is the biggest thing of all. The very love of this creative essence is to express itself. If it's an animal, a tree, a plant, a rock, this is an expression of this creative intelligence, this creative energy. We are an expression of this energy. And we're all individualized entities. We're individual, but we're individualized, which means we are all the same in our internal energy, but we're individualized by the form we've taken, by the thoughts we think, how we want to walk through life, our experiences. But inside, we're all connected. So this is the expression of this thing as humans. Intelligence. And if you look at all of the different expressions, we don't know. Science has looked at plants, and we've studied animals and everything. And there's a certain limitation that we've placed on other species. And we don't know yet whether they have the same conscious choice that we have. We don't know that. But for right now, we are in this holding pattern of where they don't have as much conscious choice as we do. We can choose how we want to show up. We can choose our words. We can choose where we want to live. We can choose what we want to eat. We have a choice on how we walk out our lives, how we do this expression of this. But you know what? We don't know what we're going to find out later. We don't know. Maybe we've seen trees. They can have a certain choice about moving. We've seen trees walk. We do. But for whatever the gift is that this thing itself gave us is a choice. So how does it work? The only way it can work is by working through us. So we have to understand it and understand its concepts and possibilities and lack of limitation in order for it to walk through us in its greatest form. The thing works through us by works for us by working through us and is us always. It cannot work for us in any other way. It spreads itself over the whole universe and shouts at us from every angle. But it can become power to us only when we recognize it, when we understand it, and actually recognize it as a power. So we know that it works through us. We know that this is a responsive energy. It responds to us. But Dr. Holmes says, be careful. Do not come to this thing with a superstition like we come to God. To believe that God will answer the prayer of one and not of another. The answer is not that God has not responded to some and not to others, but some have responded to God more than to others. This principle we keep speaking about does not play favorites. It doesn't care. It gives. It just gives. This is the most magnificent thing to remember and know. It is creation in its best form. And what does creation do? It creates by giving. And how does it give? It gives through us. We are the hands, we are the arms, we are the lips, we are the ears, we are the eyes. So through us works this power, this thing itself, this magnificence that we cannot name, that encompasses and involves everything. The stars and us are made of it. So if you look up and you go, ooh, there's my brother up there. Yes, because it is made of the same thing, this energy, this intelligence is in, through, and as us, always in every single thing we do. And it functions with two major aspects. One is the love, and the other is the law. The law is how everything works. These are the laws of nature that we know, even like we can bring in cause and effect. Cause, the first cause, the effect, all of this. Isn't that brilliant? The basic law of nature, cause and effect. You know, some people call it karma. That's a little bit different. But basically, cause, something happened, affect us. God thought, we are. It's that easy. And it's not. To wrap our heads around this is to dive deeper and deeper and deeper into it. But the one thing Dr. Holmes wanted to be careful of is not to be misled into thinking that this is only mechanical. It's not just the laws, because we can go there. I can go there. I'm a scientific mind. That's where I go. I can go there. It's like, yeah, you do this, you get this. You do this, you get this. Circulation. Cause and effect, attraction, electricity, anything. It's very, very easy to get caught up in that it's just mechanical. It is not. Creation is love. So we have these two aspects that are working together magnificently as this thing. Love is the self-givingness of the Spirit through the desire of life to express itself in terms of creation. I'm going to say that one again. I love his writing. Love is the self-givingness of the Spirit through the desire of life to express itself in terms of creation. Love, therefore, is a synonym for God. We heard it back there. You can use that. Now, law is the universal creative medium in action. It's how it all works. Law is a blind force. It doesn't care. It's unbiased. Law is the way. So often we say that love points the way and law makes it possible. So the great love of the universe must be one with the great law of its own being, and we approach love through the law. This then is the teaching, love and law. As the love of God is perfect, so the law of God is also perfect, and we must understand both. Yes, I can see a myriad of question marks right above the heads. But what I invite you to, with all of this that I've spoken today, is just to let it wash into you. Just let it wash into you. Try and discern and analyze and pick it all apart. You're going to hear this over and over again in everything that we say and do. This is just the basic, the first chapter, the thing itself. And how it works. It is all that there is, and it works through us. 2 sentences. I spoke for 20 minutes to say 2 sentences. But this is what my invitation is for you, is to go to awe. Go to awe about this thing. Just steep yourself and revel in the magnificence of its potential. Magnificence of everything you see around you. When you walk your walk during the week, just go, wow, and realize that this is it. This is the thing itself we speak about. This is first cause. This is God. Limitless, no bias, no agenda other than to give you all that you can understand and imagine. That's amazing. It is just that. And so, and don't ever forget this. When you look outside and you are in awe of whatever is out there that has come through creation, take one moment and turn it inward and look at yourself and know how magnificent you are. For you too are the creation of this thing itself. So, just a last word from Dr. Holmes. Then knowing that the thing can work for us only by working through us, let us begin to accept today more good than we experienced yesterday, and to know we shall reap a harvest of fulfilled desires. Let us realize and work with the sound knowledge and perfect faith, that as high as we shall make our mark in mind and spirit, so high shall its outward manifestation in our material world. So as high as we can imagine and dream, that's where it, God, Spirit, love, is going to meet us. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And so it is. Thank you. Let us take this to prayer. So right here in this moment, in this time, I recognize the one power, the one source, the one universal creative mind that I call God. I know that God is all there is, all that is seen, all that is unseen, omnipotent, omnipresent, ever creating, supplying, supporting, sustaining, and maintaining every single expression of itself. It is the beginning, the end, the center, and the circumference. It is all that there is. This is the only activity that is on right here, right now. This is the brilliance of this magnificence. And I know that I am one with it. I know that each and every one of us is one with this as it works around us and through us and as us, in all that we think, in all that we see, in all that we do, in all that we feel, in all that we experience. This is all that it is. And I know for each one of us that as we steep ourselves into this knowledge, as we become more curious and steep ourselves in this teaching, that there is an overwhelming opening for us to dive deeper, to know more, to have a greater way with this, to be open and vulnerable to receive all that it has to give. For that is the joy of God. That is, if ever we were to say there was an agenda in this energy, it is for us to be the most magnificent expression ever. We have given all that we need, everything, in every minute of every day. And so I know for each one of us as we walk our path that we open our arms and our hearts and our brains and everything about us to say, yes, I am ready to receive right here, right now. And it is good. It is wonderful. It is powerful. So I just release this prayer knowing it is done, knowing that Spirit, God, first cause has said yes. Yes, my beloveds, yes. You have expressed desires, you've set intentions, and it is already done. And we claim it together by saying, and so it is. Yeah. Thank you.